First contact in crisis. The research vessel Celestial Harmony drifted through the outer reaches of the spiral arm, its crystalline hull refracting starlight into rainbow patterns across its surface. Science Director Vila adjusted her atmospheric tentacles, her bioluminescent spots pulsing with excitement as she reviewed the latest sensor data. After 3 cycles of exploration, they had finally found something remarkable. Radio signals from an uncharted sector. "Captain Zix," she called out, her translator converting her harmonic tones into standard galactic common. "The signals are getting stronger. They appear to be weapons fire, but the energy signatures don't match anything in our database." The captain, a towering figure of living crystal, turned their faceted head toward the main view screen. "Weapons fire in a restricted sector. Most concerning. Are there any distress beacons?" Before Vila could respond, the ship's emergency protocols activated. Warning lights bathed the bridge in crimson as a massive vessel dropped out of FTL barely 1,000 units from their position. The alien ship was unlike anything in their records, angular, covered in thick armor plating, and bristling with what appeared to be modified mining equipment repurposed as weapons. "By the cosmic core," Vila whispered, her tentacles coiling tight against her body. "The atmospheric readings from that vessel. They're impossible. The internal pressure would crush most known species." The strange ship was engaged in combat with 3 sleek raiders, their purple hulls marking them as members of the notorious Crimson Cartel. The raiders' energy weapons splashed harmlessly against the larger vessel's armor, while it responded with devastatingly precise shots from what appeared to be industrial cutting lasers. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Arx, their crystalline form vibrating with uncertainty. "It's from the unknown vessel." The view screen flickered to life, and the entire bridge crew recoiled in shock. The being on screen was Bictal, but its form was dense and muscular, covered in some kind of synthetic fabric. Most alarming was its face, symmetrical, with exposed bones visible in what they would later learn was called a smile. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Thunderchild." The creature spoke, its voice steady despite the obvious battle damage visible behind it. "We're currently engaged with pirates attempting to raid our colony outpost. I strongly suggest you clear the area. Things are about to get messy." As if to emphasize her point, one of the raiders attempted to launch boarding pods. The Thunderchild's response was immediate and shocking. A massive mechanical arm, clearly designed for asteroid mining, swung out and literally grabbed the incoming pods, crushing them like fruit. The crew of the Celestial Harmony watched in horror and fascination as the human ship then used the same arm to physically throw the debris at another raider, somehow calculating the trajectory perfectly despite the chaos of space combat. "Remarkable," Vila breathed, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "They're using industrial equipment as weapons, but the G-forces involved in such maneuvers should be lethal to any organic being." The battle continued, with the human vessel displaying combat techniques that defied conventional space warfare doctrine. Instead of maintaining a safe distance for energy weapon exchanges, they closed to point-blank range, using their reinforced hull to simply ram one of the raiders. The pirate ship shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, proved useless against simple kinetic impact. Their life sign readings, Vila reported, her tentacles writhing with excitement. "They're producing massive amounts of adrenaline, but their bodies appear adapted to it. And their blood, it's iron-based. They're literally filled with metal." Captain Zix's crystalline form sparkled with decision patterns. "Open a channel. These beings clearly know how to handle raiders, and our mandate includes protecting developing civilizations from exploitation." When the channel opened, Captain Chen's face appeared again, now sporting what appeared to be a bleeding wound that she seemed to completely ignore. "Glad you stuck around," she said. "We could use some help corralling these last 2. Your ship's energy signature suggests you have some pretty sophisticated sensors. Care to help us predict where they'll try to jump next?" The Celestial Harmony's crew watched in amazement as their potential new allies continued to defy their understanding of what was possible. These humans, as they called themselves, treated conditions that would be lethal to most species as mere inconveniences. They operated in gravity conditions that should have crushed them, breathed corrosive oxygen, and seemed to thrive on challenges that would terrify most rational beings. As they coordinated with the Thunderchild to trap the remaining raiders, Vila couldn't help but wonder, if this was how humans handled a simple pirate attack, what else were these Deathworlders capable of? The galaxy was about to find out, and nothing would ever be the same. The Alliance forms. The meeting chamber aboard the Celestial Harmony wasn't designed for humans. Captain Sarah Chen sat in a chair meant for beings 3 times her size, yet somehow managed to make the oversized furniture look small. Science Director Vila couldn't stop her tentacles from writhing with excitement as her sensors recorded everything about this fascinating species. The raiders have established a base in the Charybdis Nebula, Captain Zix explained, their crystalline form projecting a holographic map. The radiation levels there make it impossible for most species to approach. Chen studied the map, her lips curving into what Vila had learned was called a grin, a supposedly friendly expression that nonetheless displayed the humans' alarming number of bones. Radiation, eh? That's not a problem for us. Our ships are hardened against worse, and human bodies are surprisingly good at handling radiation exposure. Impossible. Communications Officer Arx vibrated in disbelief. The nebula's radiation would cause cellular breakdown in organic matter within minutes. You'd be surprised what humans can survive, Chen replied, pulling out a small container. The aliens watched in horror as she consumed a dark liquid. This is coffee. Contains enough caffeine to kill several of your species. For us, it's breakfast. Vila's scientific curiosity overrode her horror. Your species intentionally consumes neurotoxins for stimulation. Fascinating. And your cellular repair mechanisms must be extraordinary to handle radiation exposure. The human captain nodded, then activated her own holographic display, showing the layout of her vessel. The Thunderchild was originally a deep space mining vessel. We modified it for defense after the first pirate attacks. Those weapons you saw. Mining lasers, grappling arms, and mineral crushers. Turns out tools made to crack open asteroids work pretty well against raiders too. Captain Zix's crystalline form sparkled with decision patterns. We propose an alliance. Our sensors and stealth technology, combined with your unique capabilities, would make us formidable against these raiders. One condition, Chen said, her expression turning serious. We share information. Your science officer looks ready to float away with curiosity. And frankly, we're just as interested in learning about you. Knowledge exchange goes both ways. The next few days were a crash course in human capabilities for the alien crew. They watched in amazement as human engineers helped upgrade their systems, working in conditions that should have been lethal. The humans insisted on conducting repairs on the exterior of their ship manually, claiming they could feel when something wasn't right better than any diagnostic tool. Their environmental suits, Vila reported during a staff meeting, her spots pulsing with excitement, are barely more than fabric compared to our protective gear. They rely on their natural resilience more than technology, and their problem-solving approaches are unique. She displayed footage of a human engineer fixing a damaged hull section by literally kicking a panel back into place when the automated tools couldn't align it properly. They call it percussive maintenance, the application of brute force in a precise manner. It should not work, and yet. The Alliance faced its first test sooner than expected. A distress signal from a nearby mining colony drew both ships to investigate. The scene they found was chaotic. Raiders had attached boarding tubes to the colony's main habitat dome and were attempting to breach it. Those tubes won't survive your rescue attempt, Arx warned as the Thunderchild moved into position. The pressure differential alone. We know, Chen interrupted, that unsettling grin returning. That's what we're counting on. Prepare your medical bay. The colonists will be fine, but any raiders in those tubes are about to learn about explosive decompression. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the human ship executed a maneuver that their combat simulators insisted was impossible. It literally scraped along the colony's shield barrier, shearing away the boarding tubes while its reinforced hull protected the colony structure. The raiders, their boarding parties lost, retreated in disarray. Later, in the Celestial Harmony's laboratory, Vila examined data from the encounter. Their ship's inertial dampeners were operating at minimal power, she reported. The G-forces should have killed them. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world, Chen explained during the debriefing. We're built tough. What you consider extreme conditions, we consider a normal Tuesday. But we're not invincible, just hard to kill. Captain Zix's decision patterns shifted to show understanding. You use your natural resilience as a weapon. The raiders expect ships to rely on shields and energy weapons because most species must. But we fight dirty, Chen agreed. We use what works, whether it's mining tools, radiation, or good old-fashioned ramming speed. Out here, you have to be creative. The Alliance was already changing both crews. The aliens began to see the humans' seemingly reckless approaches as calculated risks, while the humans learned to appreciate the aliens' more sophisticated technology. But as they prepared to take the fight to the raiders' base, no one could predict just how much they would need each other's strengths in the trials to come. Because in the Charybdis Nebula, where radiation and chaos reigned, even humanity's legendary resilience would be tested to its limits. Trial by fire. The Charybdis Nebula lived up to its mythological namesake. Massive waves of radiation pulsed through clouds of acidic gas, while gravitational eddies threatened to tear apart any ship that strayed from the safe corridors. The Celestial Harmony sensors could barely penetrate the chaos, even with their advanced technology. Radiation levels are approaching lethal thresholds, Vila reported, her tentacles coiling tightly against her body. Even with our shielding at maximum, we can't survive more than 30 minutes of exposure. Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comm system, distorted by the nebula's interference. The Thunderchild's readings show a large structure about 3 light minutes ahead. Has to be the raider base. We're picking up multiple ships on approach vectors. Impossible. Larks vibrated in disbelief. Our sensors show nothing but chaos. How can your primitive equipment? We're not using sensors, Chen interrupted. We're using our eyes. Humans can see radiation waves in this spectrum. They show up as a kind of purple shimmer. The raiders are using the waves for cover, but we can track their wake patterns. The aliens' respect for human capabilities had grown over their weeks of cooperation, but this revelation stunned them into silence. These Deathworlders could literally see deadly radiation with their basic optical organs. Evolution on their harsh homeworld had given them advantages that no one could have predicted. The battle began without warning. Raiders emerged from the purple haze, their ships modified to survive the nebula's hostile environment. Energy weapons were useless here. The radiation absorbed and scattered their beams randomly. But the humans had prepared for this. Launching mineral sweepers, Chen announced. The Thunderchild released what looked like a cloud of metallic dust. The aliens watched in amazement as the dust cloud, guided by the nebula's own magnetic fields, surrounded the raider ships. Now we add the catalyst. A small projectile shot from the human ship. When it reached the dust cloud, a reaction began that turned the nebula's radiation into a weapon. The dust particles became superheated, melting through the raider's hull plating. Remarkable. Vila breathed, her spots pulsing with scientific excitement. They've weaponized the very conditions that make this region lethal to most life. But the raiders had surprises of their own. A massive ship emerged from deeper in the nebula, its hull crackling with absorbed radiation. Its first shot carried enough power to overwhelm the Celestial Harmony shields, sending cascading failures through their systems. Direct hit to our life support. Arcs reported, their crystalline form vibrating with alarm. Atmosphere venting in sections 3 through 7. Captain Zix's decision patterns shifted rapidly. We must retreat. These conditions. Like hell, Chen's voice cut through the chaos. Your ship has the only sensors that can locate their base. We need you in this fight. The Thunderchild moved to position itself between the Harmony and the Raider vessel. Prepare for emergency boarding. We're coming over. Before the aliens could protest, the humans had launched what appeared to be mining pods toward their ship. The pods crashed through the damaged sections, their occupants emerging in what Vila recognized as modified mining suits. The humans moved through the vacuum and radiation as if they were taking a pleasant walk. Engineering team reporting. A human voice called over the comm. We've got patch kits and portable atmosphere generators. Just show us where you need us. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans worked. Their bodies, already denser than most species, seemed to grow stronger in the crisis. They sealed hull breaches by manually forcing warped plates back into position, their muscles straining against forces that would have crushed most beings. The radiation, Vila observed, monitoring the humans' biological signs. Their bodies are actively adapting to it. Cellular repair mechanisms are operating at unprecedented levels. Chen's voice held a note of pride. Humans are adaptable. Push us hard enough, and we just get stronger. Now, about that Raider base. The combined crews developed a plan that played to both species' strengths. The Celestial Harmony's advanced sensors, guided by human visual confirmation, mapped a safe approach through the nebula's chaos. The Thunderchild's modified mining equipment, originally designed to crack open asteroids in radiation-heavy fields, would handle the base's defenses. As they moved deeper into the nebula, the humans shared more of their unique perspectives. They described the radiation waves as beautiful, seeing patterns in the deadly chaos that their instruments couldn't detect. They treated the lethal environment as a tool to be used rather than an obstacle to be feared. You know what's funny? Chen mused during a brief lull in the action. On Earth, we have fish that live in volcanic vents, bacteria that eat radiation, and tardigrades that can survive the vacuum of space. Compared to some of our planet's life forms, we're actually pretty fragile. Vila's scientific curiosity piqued. Are you saying there are even more extreme forms of life on your world? The human captain's laugh echoed through the comm system. Oh, you have no idea. But right now, let's focus on showing these raiders why picking a fight with Deathworlders was a really bad idea. The Alliance had proven its worth, but their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The Raider base loomed before them, a massive structure built into an asteroid at the nebula's heart. Here, where the very fabric of space seemed to twist with violent energy, humans and aliens would need every advantage they possessed to emerge victorious. Understanding the Deathworlders. The Celestial Harmony's research lab had never been so active. Science Director Vila moved between workstations, her tentacles writhing with excitement as she compiled data on their human allies. The events in the Charybdis Nebula had provided unprecedented opportunities to study these remarkable beings in action. Their cellular structure is unlike anything we've encountered, she explained to Captain Zix, displaying complex molecular diagrams. Human DNA contains repair mechanisms that activate under stress. The more challenging the environment, the more efficient they become. Captain Chen stood nearby, allowing herself to be scanned while drinking her ever-present coffee. The aliens had finally stopped flinching at the sight of humans consuming what their databases classified as toxic substances. It's called adaptive biology, she explained. Our bodies are basically designed to hit stronger when things get tough. Vila's bioluminescent spots pulsed rapidly as her scanners detected something new. Captain, your bone density has increased by 3% since entering the nebula. Your body is literally reinforcing itself against the radiation. Makes sense, Chen shrugged, a gesture the aliens had learned meant casual acceptance. Back on Earth, some of our athletes train at high altitudes where oxygen is scarce. When they return to normal conditions, their performance improves. We adapt. It's what we do. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the ship's sensors. A damaged escape pod had been detected. drifting in the nebula's outer edges. Its life support was failing, but the radiation made standard rescue protocols impossible. "The pod's occupants will die before we can extend our shields," X reported, their crystalline form vibrating with distress. Chen's response was immediate. "Send me the coordinates. Our mining suits can handle a short exposure. We'll get them out." The aliens watched through their sensors as 3 humans spacewalked through the lethal radiation, manually cutting open the pod when its airlock failed. They carried the survivors, members of a species that secreted corrosive acid when stressed, back to safety, their suits smoking from exposure to both the nebula and their rescues. Later, in the medical bay, Vila examined the humans who had conducted the rescue. "Your cellular damage is extensive," she reported, her tentacles moving in patterns of concern. "Yet your bodies are already repairing themselves." "That's nothing," one of the rescue team members laughed. "You should see what happens when we break a bone. The repair makes the breakpoint stronger than it was before. Some of our athletes deliberately create microfractures to strengthen their bones." The aliens' fascination with humans extended beyond their physical capabilities. They were particularly intrigued by human problem-solving methods. While most species relied on careful calculation and minimal risk, humans seemed to thrive on what they called improvisation. During a joint repair operation, the aliens watched in amazement as a human engineer fixed a complex plasma conduit using nothing but basic tools and what they called duct tape. When asked why they didn't wait for proper replacement parts, the engineer simply replied, "Sometimes good enough is better than perfect." "Your species approaches problems from unique angles," Captain Zix observed during a strategy session. "You treat limitations as challenges rather than barriers." Chen nodded. "On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When something seems impossible, we don't give up, we get creative. It's how we survived on our death world, and it's how we'll survive out here." The cultural exchange went both ways. The humans were fascinated by the aliens' technology and perspectives, eagerly learning about their advanced sensors and energy manipulation techniques. But they also shared their own culture, introducing concepts like music, organized sound patterns that the aliens found both disturbing and strangely compelling. "Your species deliberately creates rhythmic vibrations for entertainment," Vila marveled, analyzing a piece of human music. "And these lyrics often tell stories of triumph over impossible odds." "That's humanity in a nutshell," Chen smiled. "We love a good challenge. The harder something is, the more satisfying it is to overcome it." As they prepared for their final assault on the Raider base, the Alliance had evolved into something more than a mere tactical partnership. The aliens had begun to understand that human resilience wasn't just physical, it was deeply ingrained in their psychology and culture. "You know what's really interesting about humans?" Vila asked during a quiet moment in her lab. "It's not just that you can survive in conditions we find lethal. It's that you actively seek out challenges. You're not content with mere survival. You want to thrive." Chen considered this. "Maybe that's because we come from a world that never made survival easy. Earth tried to kill us countless times, but instead of giving up, we learned from each challenge. We took our death world and made it our strength." The Raiders were about to learn just how formidable this combination of human determination and alien technology could be. As both ships prepared for their final approach to the Raider base, the crew of the Celestial Harmony had come to a profound realization. They weren't just working with survivors of a death world. They were witnessing the emergence of humanity as a force that would change the galaxy forever. Guardians of the Galaxy. The heart of the Charybdis Nebula pulsed with deadly radiation as the Thunderchild and Celestial Harmony approached the massive Raider base. Built into an asteroid nearly 5 kilometers across, the structure bristled with weapons cobbled together from stolen technology. Waves of purple energy rippled across its shields, feeding off the nebula's chaos. Analyzing their defenses, Vila reported, her tentacles moving in precise patterns as she coordinated the Harmony's advanced sensors. The base is using the nebula's radiation to power their shields. Conventional weapons will be useless. Captain Chen's voice came through the comm, steady despite the interference. Then we'll use unconventional weapons. Remember how we turned the nebula's radiation against those raiders earlier? Let's scale that up. The plan they developed was audacious, combining human ingenuity with alien technology in ways neither species would have conceived alone. The celestial harmony sensors mapped the nebula's radiation currents while the Thunderchild's mining equipment prepared for their largest operation yet. We've modified our mineral sweepers to carry Harmony's sensor pods, Chen explained during the final briefing. When we release them, your technology will give us a perfect map of the radiation flows. Then we trigger the catalyst, but this time, we're not just creating a localized reaction. Captain Zix's crystalline form sparkled with understanding. You intend to create a chain reaction using the nebula itself as fuel. The scale would be unprecedented. Humans, Vila observed, her spots pulsing with both anxiety and admiration. Always think bigger than expected. The raiders detected their approach, launching waves of ships to intercept them. But the Alliance was ready. The Thunderchild's modified mining lasers carved through the purple haze, their beams guided by the Harmony's precise sensors. Meanwhile, the alien vessel's advanced shielding protected both ships as they pushed deeper into the nebula's heart. Multiple contacts, Arx announced, their crystalline form vibrating with alarm. They're trying to surround us. Perfect. Chen's grin was audible in her voice. That means they're exactly where we want them. Deploy the sweepers. Thousands of tiny pods erupted from the Thunderchild's launch tubes, each one carrying a combination of human mining technology and alien sensors. They spread through the nebula like seeds in the wind, their paths calculated to maximize coverage of the radiation currents. The raiders, not understanding the true threat, focused their attacks on the two ships. Energy weapons splashed harmlessly against their combined shields while the pods moved into position. Sweeper network is ready, Vila reported. The radiation patterns they're beautiful. I can see why humans find this fascinating. Speaking of fascinating, Chen added, we've got company. Big company. A massive ship emerged from behind the asteroid base, dwarfing even the Thunderchild. Its hull was a patchwork of stolen technology, and it pulsed with power drawn directly from the nebula's heart. The Raiders' flagship, Captain Zix chimed. Our intelligence suggests it's commanded by. Don't care, Chen interrupted. Big ship, big target. Vila, how's the chain reaction coming? The science director's tentacles danced across her controls. The sweepers are in position. But Captain, the calculations suggest this reaction will be far more powerful than our previous attempts. The energy release could tear this entire sector apart. Then we better make it count. All hands, brace for some extreme physics. The catalyst deployed, a seemingly tiny projectile that disappeared into the purple haze. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the nebula itself seemed to come alive. The radiation waves, carefully mapped by the sensor pods, began to pulse in synchronization. The reaction spread like ripples in a pond, each wave amplifying the next. The Raiders' ships, which had been using the radiation for power, suddenly found their energy sources turning against them. Their shields are overloading, Vila reported, her spots flashing with excitement. The reaction is exceeding all predicted parameters. The Raider flagship, realizing the danger too late, tried to retreat, but the humans had planned for this. The Thunderchild's massive mining arms, normally used for grappling asteroids, shot out and latched onto the larger vessel. You're not going anywhere, Chen declared. Time to learn why you don't pick fights with Deathworlders. The chain reaction reached its peak. The nebula blazed with purple fire as radiation waves collapsed in on themselves, creating a cascade of energy that overwhelmed the Raiders' systems. Ships designed to harness the nebula's power found themselves unable to contain it. The Celestial Harmony's advanced shields, combined with the Thunderchild's reinforced hull, allowed them to weather the storm. The Raider fleet wasn't so fortunate. Their vessels, overloaded by the very power they tried to steal, began to break apart. When the energy storm finally subsided, the nebula had changed. The chaotic radiation waves had been temporarily tamed, creating safe corridors through what had once been impassable space. Analysis complete, Vila announced, her voice filled with wonder. The reaction has actually stabilized this region of space. The Raider's base is crippled, and we've inadvertently created new trade routes through the nebula. Captain Zix turned to the main screen, where Chen's image showed the humans sporting what they now recognized as a satisfied grin. Your species continues to surprise us. You not only survived in this death zone, you reshaped it. That's what humans do, Chen replied. We don't just adapt to hostile environments. We make them work for us. And now, thanks to this alliance, we can do even more. As the two ships began coordinating rescue operations for the surrendering raiders, both crews realized this was more than just a victory. It was the beginning of something new. Humans had proven they could be more than survivors of a death world. They could be protectors of life throughout the galaxy. The alliance between the Celestial Harmony and Thunderchild would become a model for future cooperation, combining human resilience and ingenuity with advanced alien technology. Together, they had turned one of the most dangerous regions of space into a beacon of hope. And throughout the galaxy, word began to spread. If you want to survive in the most hostile environments space has to offer, ally yourself with the Deathworlders. They don't just survive, they thrive.